We obsess over generational divides. We map out the economic habits of boomers, the workplace demands of millennials, and the digital culture of Gen Z with microscopic precision. Yet sitting right in the middle is an entire demographic that operates almost entirely under the cultural radar. They are the people who wrote the code for our hyper-connected digital age, but they refuse to post about their own lives online. They are your older coworkers who figure things out without asking, and your parents who occasionally seem totally detached. They often get labeled as cynical or apathetic, but their psychology is a logical response to a specific historical window. They were shaped by an era defined by a nearly complete lack of adult supervision. By treating Generation X as a flyover demographic, we miss the mechanics of how they operate. Skipping over them leaves a gap in our understanding of how functional, independent resilience is actually built. To understand them, you have to look at the macroeconomic shift of the 1970s and 80s. Rising inflation and divorce rates meant dual-income households became necessary, creating millions of latchkey kids. By 1984, roughly 7 million children were regularly returning from school to a locked, empty house. There were no smartphones to text a parent, and no surveillance cameras to verify they arrived safely. An 8-year-old would let themselves in, make a snack, and sit in absolute quiet until evening. Psychologists categorize this as a high-contingency environment. Without adults there to buffer mistakes, actions produced direct, immediate consequences. If you broke a rule, you paid the price right then and there. Because there was no immediate safety net, they had to physically master their surroundings. If a bike chain slipped or a TV antenna lost signal, you didn't call a technician. You grabbed a screwdriver and figured out the mechanics of the object yourself. Even information had a physical cost. Before search engines, answering a simple question required walking to a library and hunting manually through hundreds of index cards. Knowledge demanded significant friction and time. Cognitive researchers call this deeper encoding. When you have to exert intense physical effort to obtain information or fix a problem, that knowledge becomes permanently integrated into your memory. This high-friction environment wired them to value hard-won competence. As this generation entered young adulthood in the 80s and 90s, they watched the mid-century promise of corporate loyalty collapse. The idea that working hard for a single company would guarantee a pension and a stable life evaporated. They saw their parents give decades to massive organizations, only to receive pink slips the moment corporate restructuring required budget cuts. The rules of economic stability were being rewritten overnight. Watching authority figures fumble the economy, the AIDS crisis, and major political scandals eroded their faith in institutional power. To Gen X, a flashy job title meant nothing if the person lacked actual skill. Psychologists call this defensive pessimism. It acts as emotional armor. They anticipate systems breaking down to prepare for fallout. Knowing they couldn't trust corporate protection, they focused entirely on personal competence, working to be the most valuable person. This instinct was reinforced, Biradil said. The youngest among them graduated directly into the dot-com bubble burst, and the oldest had their prime earning years interrupted by the 2008 financial crash. Their workplace cynicism is a survival strategy built on observed historical outcomes. They witnessed the rules of stability change in real time, and they adjusted their expectations to match those recurring failures. This guarded nature extends to how they navigate the digital world. They grew up in an analog era where a massive childhood mistake was known to roughly 5 people. It lived in a local parking lot, and then it faded from memory completely. Growing up under the shadow of the Cold War, they developed a distinct brand of irony. Cracking a joke became a primary defense mechanism to handle heavy, clashing ideas, a way to deflate tension and keep the world at arm's length. This graphic demonstrates why they largely reject modern social media culture. In the Gen X psychological framework, being visible equates to being vulnerable. The math doesn't support broadcasting your life to strangers. It is not a failure to understand technology. Their online silence is a deliberate, guarded boundary based on a lifetime of evidence that flying under the radar is the safest way to operate. Today, Gen X exists in a paradox. They deliberately give their own children the constant supervision and attention they never received. Yet, quietly, they worry that by removing the friction of an unsupervised life, they might be engineering away the conditions that forge true capability. You see this in how they collaborate. Research shows they report lower levels of seeking social support during crises. Asking for help feels like a failure of their childhood conditioning. But if someone else needs assistance, they will show up instantly, fix the problem, and leave without needing public acknowledgement. Historically, they act as the architectural bridge spanning two eras. They are rooted in the physical, mechanical realities of the analog world, yet they engineered the infrastructure of the digital age that replaced it. That dual citizenship gives them a specific advantage. In an era of digital overstimulation, Generation X retains the capacity to be bored and entirely comfortable alone with their own thoughts. Their most recognizable trait is a specific type of unbothered reliability. They manage the transitions between old and new systems and expect nothing in return for the work of keeping things functional.